Welcome to MEA TV. I'm attorney Lillia Tika, and today we have a very special guest with us. We have Supreme Court Justice from state of Michigan, Justice Kyra Harris Bolden. All right, and today we have Justice Kyra Harris Bolden with us, and she will be telling us a little about herself. Justice Bolden, thank you so much for coming on our show today. How are you?
Doing well, Attorney Tika. So good to see you.
So good to see you. How have you been?
Well, I'm going well. It's been a whirlwind, but it's such an honor to sit on the highest court in the state of Michigan. So I'm doing well.
Oh, absolutely. So tell us a little about your journey to law school to where you are today.
Well, I'm a lifelong Michigander. Grew up in Southfield, Michigan. I went to Grand Valley State University for undergrad, UDM Law for law school. And I really had no intention of going into the legal field. But I think one thing in particular really changed the trajectory of my life. And I had the great fortune of having my great grandmother with me until almost my senior year of college. And she told me the story of my great grandfather, Jesse Lee Bond, and he was lynched in Tennessee in 1939 after asking a store owner for a receipt. And he was beaten and castrated and thrown into the local river. And the coroner deemed it an accidental drowning. And because of the coroner's designation, his murderers walked free. And that story of injustice in my family really resonated with me. I actually received my degree in psychology, but I really was compelled to go into the legal field so that families would see justice in a way that my family and so many other families across this nation had not seen justice. And so after I became an attorney, I worked as a judicial law clerk in Wayne County Third Circuit Court. I then was a civil litigation attorney for Lewis and Monday. And then I decided to run for the Michigan legislature. So I served 4 years in the Michigan legislature representing my hometown of Southfield, Lathrop Village, Beverly Hills, Bingham Farms, and Franklin, where I sat on the Judiciary Committee and was able to pass 5 bills into law. And I'm very proud of that work. But actually, for Michigan Supreme Court, it was not something that I had necessarily seen for myself. Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence actually asked me in June of 2021 to run for Michigan Supreme Court. And it was a resounding no. I wanted to start my family and I had intentions on becoming pregnant, and I did. But one thing that I realized was in order for us to have the Michigan and the future that we see for our children, sometimes we have to take bold steps to make sure that that happens. And so while I was pregnant in 2022, I ran for Michigan Supreme Court for the first time and had my baby in the middle of the campaign. She's almost 2 now. And kept on running. I ended up losing that campaign by 2 percentage points, but I learned some really great lessons, and I learned the mechanics of running a campaign and learned about what the people of Michigan really want out of a justice. And in a turn of events, Chief Justice Virginia McCormick stepped down, and I was appointed to fulfill her vacancy. And so I've served on the court for a year and a half now, and I've authored, I think 5 have come out as of today. And it is an honor again to sit on the Michigan Supreme Court.
Cases that you've presided on while you have been on the Supreme Court, if you want to share.
I just want to make it clear, people sometimes don't know what we do. Michigan Supreme Court literally takes any and every issue that's important to Michiganders. So we don't just do constitutional law, we don't just do criminal law, but we preside over cases that mean whether or not someone gets a new trial, whether or not, parental rights are terminated, right? Custody battles, tax issues with the state or community. We've done property tax issues. We've done zoning issues that will be coming out. So really any and everything that is important to Michiganders, we have had a hand in. Election issues typically come to the Michigan Supreme Court, right? Any issues challenging constitutional amendments to our Michigan Constitution typically come to the Michigan Supreme Court. So a wide variety of issues. And I've seen the gamut since I've sat on the court in just a year and a half.
How is it going from a typical law firm where you only specialize in certain areas to the Michigan Supreme Court?
What I'm grateful about my background is I did a little bit of criminal law. I think I skipped over that. I did some court-appointed criminal defense work. But I worked as a judicial law clerk. So that was one of my first foundational experiences. So I was actually trained as a neutral. And then becoming a civil litigator, I actually handled many issues from labor and employment to insurance to, I had some schools as clients, to contract law to neighbor disputes. And so fortunately for me, I didn't just do one area of law. I really had experience in multiple areas of law when I was a civil litigation attorney, and then use that knowledge when I went to the State House, where I quite literally voted on every single issue facing Michiganders. And so I felt like running for Michigan Supreme Court wasn't necessarily a stretch. Instead of making the laws, I'm now interpreting laws and litigating, and I've had a hand in making laws. And so for me, almost a natural progression is interpreting law.
And you said you had passed 5 laws during your time on the House of Representatives, is that correct? What do you want to share what those were?
Sure, I'll share a few, the major ones. So I passed the Address Confidentiality Act, which protects survivors of sexual violence. It shields their address with the Attorney General's office so that they can't be found when they are called for jury duty or when they go to vote, which is a typical way to be found. I also was a part of the Wrongful Imprisonment Compensation Act amendment. So sometimes you need an attorney's eyes at the table when important decisions are being made. And what was happening was the statute says that you can file an action in 18 months, but wrongful imprisonment compensation claims go through the Court of Claims, which have a filing deadline of 6 months. And so a lot of cases were being dismissed, people that were following the statute but didn't realize that there was a separate filing deadline for the Court of Claims. What my bill did was clean that up, made it 6 months that you had to file so everyone was aware, and gave an opportunity for those whose cases had been dismissed to refile. And so simple things like that, but really impactful, especially to people that have been wrongfully convicted. I also was a part of the medically frail prison reform package. And so I, as a legislator, visited prisons in the state of Michigan. I did not realize that there were whole medical units that were like hospitals in our state prisons that care for people when, some are in comas, some are on dialysis, right? So we have whole medically frail units. And sometimes people are not able to get parole no matter what state they're in. And so I always take the example of, a 70-year-old person that was convicted of embezzlement, right? So imagine them being in a coma with no ability to parole. And so what my bill did was, in limited circumstances, nonviolent crimes, for people to have the opportunity to be paroled and to go to a nursing home and also use their VA benefits and other benefits. So it saved the state money, and also was just a kinder, compassionate way to deal with behavior in the state of Michigan.
Absolutely. Wow, that's amazing. Um, I I love that you worked on wrongful imprisonment stuff. I mean, I love that area. I've always said that at the end of the day, that's what I want to focus on. So that's amazing. So since you've been on the Supreme Court, tell us about your experience there.
Came in, it was the middle of the term. And so in my first year, when I had three majority opinions to write, it was between January and July 31st, which is the end of our term. And while other justices had since September to July 31st to write three or four opinions. So we came in moving, right? And at the time, I also had a 5-month-old. So, balancing being a new mother and a new job was challenging, but I'm very just fortunate for the support of the other justices who have mentored me and guided me. And now I'm on solid footing. I know exactly what to do. And the justices and we talk all the time to make sure that we're trying our best to get the right answer for Michigan. And so, like I said, I've seen a myriad of cases just in my year and a half, and I hope to continue to do that great work for the state of Michigan.
About some other extracurricular things that you've done outside of being in the courtroom or being on the Supreme Court that, have pushed you to.
So I've always been in the community, a community advocate. There was no way I would have even gotten elected to be a state representative if I wasn't already active in the community. So I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and have done tons of work with them. But also just made sure to go to my local events and coffee hours and things like that. In my role now, I'm actually a Supreme Court liaison to our treatment courts as well as child welfare, which means that I'm at the table making sure that these programs get enough funding and resources in order to function properly. Particularly, treatment courts are an alternative to incarceration. And so I'm very fortunate to be the liaison to those two Supreme Court um, task forces. But other than that, I do try to go to events. Well, now it's probably like 7 events, but even on the off year, it was 1 to 9 events per week, because I think it's important for people to see me for accessibility and transparency reasons. I think a lot of people, the judicial branch is so far removed from them, and I think helping when people see me and they get to meet me, I think it just brings a little bit more realness to the position. I think it makes people feel more comfortable, and it instills trust in our judiciary system.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Have you been able to speak to any Middle Eastern communities or anything like that? Or is this like your first time kind of exposing yourself to that specific community?
I have um, done my best to adhere to a broad coalition of folks. So it's definitely not my first introduction. Again, being a part of Michigan, I think you would have to purposely, right, stay away. But I have had the great opportunity throughout my career of engaging with the Middle Eastern community before I ever ran for office, and now. So I've done several speaking events with the Middle Eastern community, and I hope to continue. And I do encourage you, if you would love to have me at your event or as a speaker, please invite me. My information is on the Michigan Supreme Court website. I would love to meet you.
Thank you so much. Now, what would you say to people out there that are going to vote? If you want to tell them how they can vote, or where your name is on the ballot, whatever you want to go ahead and give the message out to the community, go ahead.
So I will be on the November ballot in the nonpartisan section. So your judges will be in the nonpartisan section. A lot of people miss this because they vote in the partisan section and they think they're done. You have to look for the nonpartisan section, look for Michigan Supreme Court. You have to specifically bubble in Bolden if you want me to continue to be your Michigan Supreme Court justice. It is for a 4-year term because I have to complete the term of Chief Justice Virginia McCormick. But again, I am in the nonpartisan section and I want you to bubble in Bolden.
All right. Thank you so much, Justice Bolden. Is there anything else that you would like to add to the Middle Eastern community, or you want them to know about your position, or anything at all? Awesome.
I'm proud to be endorsed by Engage and so many other organizations, a broad coalition of folks across the state of Michigan. A lot of people ask me, do I just stay in Southeast Michigan? And the answer is no. I actually travel across the state. This is a statewide campaign. And so I spent 6 days up north. I'm making multiple trips to the west side of Michigan. And so even on off years, or I guess last year, I was doing that. And so again, if there's an event that you would like to see me, I really encourage you to invite me, and I would love to see you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Justice Bolden. Have a wonderful day and good luck.
Thank you.
Don't forget to vote for Justice Kyra Harris Bolden for the Michigan Supreme Court in November.